Hey y'all, today is May 6th and we are doing a little mini lesson on surface area. So we talked in class about surface area of rectangular prisms, cubes, those kind of shapes. We also talked about surface area of triangular prisms and surface area of cylinders. So we're going to do all three of those in our little mini lesson today. We just have two of each. So first of all, in number 1 and 2, I have surface area of rectangular prism and a cube. Now for these, I can use a formula. And that formula, I'm going to write up here, is surface area equals 2 times the length times the width plus 2 times the length times the height plus 2 times the width times the height. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out so we can see the whole formula. Surface area equals 2 times length times width plus 2 times length times height plus 2 times width times height. So when I look at number 1 that I have right here, it doesn't matter how I label things. So I might just label this 32 as my length, this 8 as my width, and this 1.5 as my height. Okay, so now that I have that, I'm ready to plug that in and use my formula. So I know that I'm going to have 2 times length times width, so 2 times 32 times 8 plus 2 times my length, 32, times my height, 1.5, plus 2 times my width, 8, times my height, 1.5. And now I'm just going to plug this into my calculator. So let's go to our Desmos calculator. I have it right here. So we have 2 times 32 for my length times 8 for my width, and I get 512. Okay, so my first little piece is 512 plus, now I'm going to put my second little piece, 2 times 32 times 1.5 into my calculator. 2 times 32 times 1.5, and I get 96. Oops, change that back to my pen. And then my third little piece, I have 2 times 8 times 1.5. So we put that into our calculator. 2 times 8 times 1.5, and I get 24. Okay, so now that I have all three pieces, I can add them together. 512 plus 96 plus 24. We'll just put that in our calculator. 512 plus 96 plus 24, and I get 632. So the surface area of this rectangular prism is 632 square centimeters. Okay, now let's look at number 2. And number 2, I could use the exact same formula, but I know that this is a cube, and I know that this is a cube because all sides are the same length. All sides here are 12 feet. So for a cube, all sides are going to be the same. So I'm just going to talk about this side right here that I'm kind of tracing in pink, that side right there. What would the area of that one side be? Well, I know that this part right here is 12 and this part right here is 12. So the area of that side would be 12 times 12, which is 144. If you didn't know that, you could put that into a calculator. Now, how many sides are there in a cube? Well, there's that side right there. There's also this side over here, right? So that's 2. So that's my right and left side. So I have 2. I have a top and a bottom, so that's 3, 4, right? And then I have a back and a front, 5, 6. So top, bottom, 1, 2, left, right, 3, 4, front, back, 5, 6. So there are 6 total sides. That all have the same area. So knowing that, would it make sense to take this 144 and multiply it times 6? It would. And I would get the same thing if I had used my traditional formula. So 6 times 144, let's go put that into our calculator. And I get 864. So my area here for this cube is 864 square feet. So I did that one a little bit different just because it was a cube. But remember, I could have used this formula that we wrote up here. I would have gotten the exact same answer. Okay, now let's move on to our triangular prisms. So I don't really have a formula for these. So I'm just going to focus on each face. So I notice in number 3 that I've got a triangle in the front and back, right? So I've got this triangle here in the front, and I've got an equivalent triangle or an equal triangle in the back. Those two triangles are the exact same, right? So I'm going to kind of label this as front and back, and that tells me I'm working on my triangle. Okay, now the area formula for a triangle, just say triangle, not a triangular prism, is 1/2 times the base times the height. Well, when I'm looking at this front triangle, I have everything labeled. My base is this 4, and my height is this 3. So we're going to have 1/2 times 4 times 3, right? I'm going to make some room here. I'm running out of room. Okay. Well, 1/2 times 4, I know, is 2. And 2 times 3 is 6. So the area of the triangle in the front and back is 6. So just remember, I've got 2 of those. Now let's focus on my right and left sides. So I'm talking about this part right here, which is a rectangle. We know how to find the area of a rectangle. It's length times width, right? So this is my right and left side. So I'm going to call it right and left, because there are 2 of them. And my length, I'm going to say, is this 15, and my width is this 5. So 15 times 5, right? And 15 times 5, whether you know that off the top of your head or you put that in your calculator, you're going to get 75. Okay? Now let's talk about our last side. Well, my last side, the only one I have left, is this bottom rectangle. Oops. Let's see if I can draw it a little better. So we have that side. It does not want to line up correctly for me. And then we have this side here. That side, again, not wanting to line up correctly. There we go. Okay, so we have that bottom, right? So the bottom, again, is a rectangle. So it's just length times width. So my length, let's say, is that 15, and the width is that 4. So 15 times 4. And 15 times 4 is 60. Okay? Now, we need to find our surface area, and our surface area is going to be the area of all of these sides combined. So keep in mind, there's a front and a back, a right and a left, and a bottom. So all together, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 total sides. Okay? So I'm going to add up 5 numbers. So surface area is my front, which we already said was 6, plus my back, which is 6, plus my right, which is 75, plus my left, which is 75, plus the bottom, which is 60. So now I'm going to add all of that and put that into my calculator. So we have 6 plus 6 plus 75 plus 75 plus 60, and I get 222. So the surface area is 222 square centimeters. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with number 4. So it's a very similar triangle that I have here, right? So we're going to start with our front and back, because our front and back are the triangles. Okay, so I'm looking at this triangle right here. And of course it doesn't want to line up correctly, but y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Okay, now one thing about this triangle is I see these 3 little dash marks right there. That's telling me that all 3 of those lines are 9 meters. So what is this line right here that's my base? Well, it would be 9 meters. If this one in the back is 9, I know the one in the front is also 9. So I'm just going to relabel that one 9 meters, right? Because that helps me see in my triangle my base and my height. Okay, so now that we know that, I'm going to use my triangle formula. So we have 1/2 times base times height. That's going to tell me the area of that triangle face. So we have 1/2 times 9 times 7.8. Well, let's put that into our calculator and see what we get. I'm going to move this over just slightly first. Okay, so 1/2 times 9 times 7.8. So we have 0.5 for 1/2 times 9 times 7.8. And I get 35.1. So we have 35.1. Now let's focus on our right and left sides. So our right and left sides, we're looking at this rectangle right here and the one on the opposite side, right? So what I notice about that rectangle is I've got a length of 12 and a width of 9. So for my right and left sides, to find the area, all I have to do is multiply 12 times 9. So 12 times 9, if you put that into your calculator, you're going to get 108. Okay, now let's look at the bottom. Okay, so the bottom is this rectangle right here. Oops, that kind of got curved, didn't it? Let's see if I can do that better. That rectangle right there, right? Well, what I noticed about that rectangle is it's still 12 by 9. Same thing. So the bottom is also 12 times 9, which is 108. So to find the surface area, I'm going to add up the area of all 5 sides. And remember, there are 5 sides because there's a front, a back, that's 2, a right, a left, that's 4, and a bottom, that's 5. So I'm adding up 5 numbers, right? So surface area is my front and back, 35.1 plus 35.1. Now my right and left, 108 plus 108. Now my bottom, 108. So now I'm ready to put all of this into my calculator and see what my total surface area of this triangular prism is. So we have 35.1 plus 35.1 plus 108 plus 108 plus 108, and I get 394.2. So the surface area is 394.2 square meters. Okay, now we're moving on to surface area of cylinders. So I do have a formula that I can use for these. So I'm going to write my formula up here at the top where I wrote my first formula. So surface area for cylinders. Now cylinders are like prisms, but the faces, or the bases, I guess I should call them, are circles, right? So anytime you see a circle, remember, we're going to have a pi. Remember, we always substitute 3.14 in for pi. So my formula for surface area of a cylinder is 2 times pi times the radius squared. Well, think about that. If you remember, pi times the radius squared is the formula for area, of a circle, and I have one on the top and one on the bottom, or I have two of them, so I multiply it times 2. Now I'm going to add to that, because I have to have like the middle part taken care of, right? In between the two bases, in between those two circular bases. So 2 times pi times the radius, that's the circumference, times the height. And that's going to give me the middle part. And then I add that together and I have my total surface area. So let's look at this example right here. So why is 17 significant? Well, that's going to be my height. So I'm going to label that with an H. And 14, notice, goes from this edge to the center. So 14 is my radius. Okay, so remember our formula. Surface area is 2 times pi times the radius squared plus 2 times pi times the radius times the height. Okay, so I have everything that I need right here. I'm just going to plug in and simplify. So we have 2 times 3.14 times 14 squared plus 2 times 3.14 times 14, that's my radius, times 17, which is my height. So now I've got two pieces that I'm going to plug into my calculator. I'm going to start with this piece right here. Okay, so we have 2 times 3.14 times 14, and remember we hit that A squared button underneath main to square that. And I get 1,230.88. So that first part equals 1,230.88. Now I'm going to find my second part, so I'm going to simplify that. So go back to our calculator. 2 times 3.14 times 14 times 17 for my height. I don't have to square anything here, okay? I get 1,494.64. So go back over here, 1,494.64. So now I'm just going to add those two pieces together. So back to my calculator, 1,230.88 plus 1,494.64, and I get 2,725.52. So 2725.52. And don't forget your units, it's square meters. Okay, last one, number 6. Again, we have a cylinder, but this one's a little different because notice we were given a line that goes from one edge all the way to the other edge in our circular base. Now, what is that called? That's called a diameter. It goes from one edge through the center to the other edge. So if my diameter is 22, do I know my radius? Well, my radius is just half of that. So 22 divided by 2 is 11. So it's really important to know the radius for our formula. Now, why is that 15 significant? That's my height. So now that I know my radius and my height, I'm ready to use my formula. So surface area is 2 times pi, so 3.14, times my radius squared, plus 2 times 3.14 for pi, times my radius, 11, times my height, 15. And now I'm ready to plug things into my calculator. So I'm going to start with this first piece right here, 2 times 3.14 times 11 squared. So back to the calculator, 2 times 3.14 times 11, hit that A square button to square it, and I get 759.88. So 759.88. Now I'm going to add my second piece to that, but I need to put that into my calculator first. So we have 2 times 3.14 times 11 is my radius times 15 for my height. And I get 1,036.2. So 1036.2. So now I'm just going to add those two pieces together. So back to my calculator. We have 759.88 plus 1036.2, and I get 1796.08. So 1796.08 square inches is the surface area of this cylinder. That is the end of this mini lesson. I hope you found it helpful.